what is it about that I would like to share with you? Flight levels is the title, and the subtitle is the missing link to business agility. And I hope that in roughly 40 minutes, I will get the message across what flight levels is and why companies should care or think about working with flight levels. Let's start with why, right? All right, so why flight levels? Well, I tried to answer this question in a book. The book is called Rethinking Agile, and the book is basically about a story of an organization who wanted to become agile, and they started a quite big agile transformation. Their main goal was they wanted to decrease their time to market. It took like forever until they could ship their initiatives and projects to the market, and they were like, we need to improve this. Of course, there were multiple other goals that they wanted to achieve, but this was really like their main topic, right? Shipping faster to the market. So what did they do to achieve this goal? They reorganized their whole organization, and they did a big agile transformation, and they built cross-functional agile product teams. I think we don't have to talk about cross-functionality here. We know what cross-functionality is. We want to tear down the functional silos. We want to bring in as much knowledge as possible in one team so that this team can deliver directly to the market, right? And without any dependencies. And they also did product teams. This means each team was only working on one product. Again, they wanted to eliminate all the dependencies because then they are like super fast. This was the idea. So what was the result of this transformation? Time to market increased. It was getting worse. And they were like, that's not so good, actually. So what was the problem, right? They were like, the holy grail is cross-functionality. We need to tear down all these functional silos, because when we finally have our cross-functional teams, we get rid of all the dependencies and everything is like great. And well, don't get me wrong, I'm a huge fan of cross-functionality. However, there is one thing. Yes, they teared down the functional silos, but what they also did, they built cross-functional silos. And well, I'm not sure if this is so much better, right? So the point is, it's not so important how your team structure looks like. I mean, of course, not every silo is the best silo, and maybe a cross-functional silo is better than a functional silo, but still, you will always end up in dependencies. This means no matter how you organize your organization, we somehow need to target these walls, but we don't have to target them like that we tear them down. What we could do is we could try to drill like interaction holes into our silos, right? So the thing is, I think it is a fairy tale that you can build an organization without any dependencies. No matter how you reorganize, you will always end up in a siloed structure with dependencies. You can go from functional silos to cross-functional silos. You can build product silos. You can build product group silos. You can build market silos, customer segment silos. I don't know what. In the end, you will always end up in having dependencies. So the point is, not to find the perfect org structure without any dependency. I think it's way more important that we understand the dependencies and that we become better in managing dependencies before we start the next reorganization again and again and again. And that's exactly what we did in this organization. How did we do it? Well, we applied flight levels thinking, kind of. This is what we did to get rid of this continuous reorganization mindset, kind of. So flight levels thinking. What is flight levels actually? Well, I don't know, honestly. I don't want to call it a framework because I'm not sure if it is a framework. For me, it is more like a thinking model. So it helps you, flight levels helps you to figure out what are the levers that you need to pull in order to achieve the results that you want to achieve. So it's not like a blueprint that you just like, apply in your organization and everything is fine. It's more like a thinking model. And this sounds very unsexy, right? So who wants to think these days? It's not so the best thing to do. But in the end, I think it's not too bad to understand how your organization works. And based on this understanding, we are like improving. But that's like the spirit of flight levels, right? It builds on an understanding how things are actually working. And based on this, we make laser focused improvements for our situation to exactly achieve the results that we want to achieve. So that's what it is. It's not a gunshot approach. It's more like a laser focused approach. And what are organizations doing when they are applying this flight levels thinking? Well, in the end, they apply 5 activities on 3 levels, and they use a so-called flight level systems architecture to glue all the agile islands together. And that's what I would like to show you in the next 30-ish minutes or so. So let's start with the 5 activities. So organizations try to apply 5 activities on 3 levels in their organization. What is activity number 1? Activity number 1 is visualize your situation. Visualization is key in flight levels, especially when it comes to understanding how things work. So I think visualization is just a means to an end. It helps us to see what's actually going on. So we don't want to fly blind, right? So this could be a visualization of a flight level system. What we see here is you don't have to be able to read everything. But what we see is a quite long process, right? A lot of columns here, and we have like tickets with like check boxes on it and everything. So this could be a kind of visualization of a flight level system. This is probably suitable for an organization where people know what they are doing. So the degree of uncertainty is quite low. We have like established processes, and we are like optimizing for operational excellence, right? Another extreme of a visualization could be something like this. So this is more like a visualization in a context with a high degree of uncertainty. There is actually no process. So we are here in the now, right? Everything to the right, like the board logic is already done. This is our now. These are the things that we need to work on. We think we can somehow ship these things before Christmas. This at the end of March, kind of, and the rest is somehow later. So this is a structure, a very simple structure, what we call now, next, later. So we don't know what we are doing in the end. So we are exploring things, right? And it's a very loose structure. And this is just like 2 examples of flight level systems, and these are like 2 extreme examples, right? And we know the world is not like black and white. There are 50 shades of gray in between, but that's exactly the point when it comes to visualizing your situation. Make your visualization, make your situation explicit so that you don't fly blind, that you see what's actually going on. So that's what organizations are doing when they're using flight levels. They are visualizing their situation. What else? They're creating focus. There are so many ways to create focus. Many of you probably know something like WIP limits, like working process limits from the Kanban world, or maybe something like time boxes from the Scrum world, like sprints or something like this. But there's like more, like sequencing, start policies, and so on. What is the point about all these ways to create focus? There's one thing that we want to achieve, and this is we want to shift the behavior from starting work to finishing work. Because the point is, starting work is expensive and delivering work brings money. So we want to actually rather earn money than spend money. That's the idea behind it, right? And if we shift the behavior from starting to finishing, we need to let go from resource utilization. So it's not about optimizing resource utilization so that each and every one is working all the time. We are like shifting the behavior from working to finishing work. And this builds in like free capacity in your organization. So the point is, do not optimize for busy people, optimize for busy work. If you optimize for busy people, surprise, surprise, you get busy people, right? But this doesn't mean that you're delivering value to your customers. So you need to let go from this idea of full resource utilization. And we know what full resource utilization does to systems. We know situations like this, right? So this is a road network which is quite well utilized, right? We're not talking about a 100% utilization here. If you can see, there is a lot of parking space left for cars. So you could park in way more cars here. So we're not talking about 100% utilization here. But I kind of like this picture a lot because everybody knows what's going on. I mean, I don't have to study flow science to understand this picture, right? So if I'm the car here up the road, I probably won't go 200 kilometers per hour. It will be a little bit slower, right? So speed in highly congested systems is good, but not possible. And the other thing is, if I'm the car up here, I have no freaking clue when I will be at the end of this road, right? This means predictability, due date performance in highly congested systems just doesn't work, right? And I mean, everybody understands this because we're driving cars, right? And I kind of like this picture because you can easily transform it to our organizations. Let's assume this is our organization. And let's assume we are an agile organization. This means we have a lot of visualizations somewhere, right? So here we have a Kanban board. Here we probably have a Scrum board. Maybe there's a safe train somewhere passing by. So this is all like the visualizations that we have, right, in our organization, all the work systems. And now we load them full with work. And now we are faster because we see the work. No, that's totally not the point, right? So if you want to speed up a system, if we want to speed up this road network here, we need to remove cars from the road. If you want to speed up our delivery of work, we need to remove work out of our systems, right? Yeah, and that's actually highly important when it comes to delivering value to the customer. So let's not focus on busy people. Let's focus on moving cars in the end, on moving work, right? And that's what we mean when we say, okay, we need to create focus. So that's probably the hardest thing when it comes to applying the 5 activities. Many organizations are like, okay, we've visualized our situation and now we see it's really bad. And maybe we are able to, I don't know, manage the dysfunctionality a little bit better, but you won't see a lot of improvement if you're just visualizing your work. You need to go the next step, which is creating focus, because this is really like where you improve your work system. So that's activity number 2. What else? Activity number 3 is establish agile interactions. What does this mean? Well, in the end, it means that the right people talk about the right stuff at the right time. And this is across all the teams. The thing is, when we build these work systems, when we build these boards, these are just like dead objects, right? So boards don't improve anything. Human beings are the ones who are like improving when it comes to, human beings are the ones who are taking the or doing the improvements actually. And the board is kind of the stuff that it shows us the things that we have to talk about. So we need to have all these boards in place which somehow capture the current situation, but then we need to bring the right people at the right time in front of the board to have a conversation across all the silos and to come up with the decisions that matter, right? This is what we call establishing agile interactions. That's activity number 3. Activity number 4, what organizations are doing when they are using flight levels is they measure progress. This means we're doing measurements, right? But here's the thing. We don't do measurements because we can, right? There is an idea in flight levels land why we are actually doing measurements. Number one is, in flight levels land, we see measurements as a feedback loop, right? So we want to achieve something. For instance, the company in the book I was talking about, they wanted to improve the time to market, right? So maybe it's a smart idea to measure time to market so that we see as a kind of feedback, are we improving, right? So if it's getting better, let's do more of it. If it's not getting better, we need to change our behavior, right? So measurements act as a feedback loop. Measurements also foster a common understanding. What does this mean? Well, for instance, we want to improve our quality, right? Maybe a lot of people are clapping and yes, improving quality is perfect. Let's improve our quality. But what does this actually mean, right? So how can we measure that our quality improves in, let's say, 2 months or so? Whenever we ask these questions, we need to be precise. So what does it mean, improving quality? How can we see it? Does it mean we have not so many bug tickets in our bug tracker? Or does it mean we have not so many calls at the support hotline? Or what else, right? So whenever we establish a measurement, we also have or find a common understanding what we really want to achieve in the end, right? So that's the second point that's important when we talk about measurements. And point number 3 is even more important, I think. Whenever we come up with a measurement, the system will try to achieve this measurement. So for instance, if we want to improve our time to market, everybody is trying to improve time to market, maybe by reducing quality, right? That's quite easy. So whenever we come up with a measurement, we also need to come up with counter measurements, right? Counter measurements which somehow tell us, okay, are we now sub-optimizing the system? So we don't want to become faster for the sake of bad quality, right? So whenever we set a measurement, also brainstorm what are 1, 2, 3, 4 counter measurements so that you're not sub-optimizing the system. So this is how measurements are seen in flight levels land. So we don't do measurements because we can. There is a meaning behind it. There's a reason behind it, right? They act as feedback loop and we want to see if we are making progress. So activity number 4. So organizations are visualizing the situation, they're creating focus, they're establishing agile interactions, and they are measuring progress. Nice. What else are they doing? They're improving. And improving means we are like going in circles, right? So you are never ever done. Whenever you see like a flight level system or something like this, it's we like to say the latest state of misunderstanding. We think that the work works or that the world works like this, but then there's reality. And reality is usually always smarter. So we can try to bend reality or we just improve our system. And that's usually a little bit easier and cheaper. So yeah, you're never ever done. So whenever you take a look at the flight level system, it's wrong. And for me, this is somehow a quite liberating idea because I don't have to get it right, right? So it's wrong anyway, but let's improve on it and improve, improve, improve. So these are the 5 activities. And when you run through these 5 activities, you probably end up with a board like this, with some social interactions, agile interactions around it, and some policies, right? So what's the point now? I mean, if I see something like this, this could be a Scrum board, this could be a Kanban board, maybe even a design thinking team could come up with something like this. Well, the idea behind flight levels is that you don't apply these 5 activities somewhere isolated in your organization. The point is that you apply these activities at different levels in your organization. And these levels are the flight levels, right? So flight level is a term from aviation, which basically describes how high an aircraft is flying. And depending on the height, you see different things, right? When you're flying very low, you see a lot of details, but your vision is somehow restricted, right? But you see a lot of details. And if you fly very high, you actually see a lot but you don't see a lot of details. And well, the same is true for organizations. In organizations, we can fly very low. When we are flying low, we are on the operational level. Flight level 1, this is the teams who are actually doing the work, right? And the idea is that the teams, they are applying these 5 activities in their work life. Now, usually an organization has more than only one team, so we would see multiple flight level 1 systems popping up in an organization. Most of the time, one team alone is not able to deliver customer value, 100% of the customer value. Most of the time, multiple teams need to collaborate in order to deliver value to the market, right? That's something that we are solving on flight level 2. This means we need to fly a little bit higher, and flight level 2 is the coordination level. The coordination level basically tells us which team has to do what work in order to deliver value to the customer, right? So this is the world of your products, of your services, of all these things that somehow matter to your customer, right? And on flight level 2, we make sure that the right team is working on the right stuff at the right time. That's the purpose. We are coordinating across multiple teams. And in order to do so, we need to connect the flight level 2 systems with the flight level 1 systems. I will show you a little bit later how this connection works, right? All right, so this is our flight level 2, and they are now connected to the flight level 1 systems. The beauty of this approach is that from the point of view of flight level 2, we actually don't care how the teams are working. So these teams could be Scrum teams, this could be Kanban teams, or it could be just working. That's also fine, right? On flight level 2, we just make sure that the right team is working on the right stuff at the right time. And how are we doing this? Well, we are again applying the 5 activities. So we are visualizing the situation across these teams. We are creating focus across these teams. We are establishing agile interactions across these teams, measuring the progress and improving. That's what we are doing, right? So as I said before, flight level 2 is like the level of your products and services. And usually an organization has more than only one product, right? So we will see multiple flight level 2 systems in an organization popping up, of course. And sometimes we also, or sometimes quite often actually, we also see this situation where we see dependencies between the products, not only between the teams, but also between the products. Like when we change something in this product, we need to change something in that product and in that product, right? So in order to solve this problem, we built another flight level 2 system. Yeah, that one here. So we can again apply these 5 activities across multiple flight level 2 systems in order to coordinate across multiple products and services. That's something what I would call an operational portfolio. So, but that's still flight level 2, right? The thing is, we can fly even a little bit higher, and then we are on flight level 3. Flight level 3 is the strategic level. This means, where are we actually heading to? That's the question what we are trying to answer on flight level 3. So what is our strategy and how can we align the work in our organization to the strategy? And well, we also connect, of course, the flight level 3 system with the flight level 2 and the flight level 1 systems. So these are the 3 flight levels. Maybe some remarks to it, right? The thing is, flight level 1 or flight level 3 is not better than flight level 1 or the other way around. It solves a different purpose, right? So here on flight level 3, we're talking about strategic stuff. Here we're talking about operational stuff, and this is a lot about coordination. And you cannot say strategy is better than operation or the other way around, because you need to have everything. That's the point. And I think that's exactly the point of flight levels when it comes to business agility, when it comes to organizational agility. We need to somehow play on fly on all 3 levels, right? It's not about, yes, flight level 3 and the rest we don't care. All the levels, they need to play hand in hand. There's another thing. When you see this illustration here, you're like, nice. This fits totally to our organization. You can easily map this to your org chart, right? So flight level 1, nice. The teams, we find them for sure somewhere in the org chart, right? Flight level 3, the C-level, seniorish management, whatever, we also find them. Flight level 2, the middle management, departments, and so on. Done. Flight levels is easy. The thing is, flight levels is not about the organizational structure. Flight levels is about the operational structure. You can think an organization without any, or you can think flight levels without any organizational structure. You can think it solely through operational structure. How does this work? Let's assume we have 2 teams here, and this team is working, and they always have a dependency to this team. They always need to talk to each other, and because they always run into dependencies. So maybe these teams, they're like, we always run into dependencies. Let's build a flight level 2 system. So the idea is the teams, they built the flight level 2 system in order to coordinate their work across the teams, right? So there's not like a flight level 2 hero or so who is like building the flight level 2 system for the teams. The teams are building the flight level 2 system. And so multiple flight level 2 systems pop up in your organization. And this idea continues. Maybe we have a product here, right? And we have a product there, and we always run into these dependencies. So the products, which are the teams, they build this operational portfolio, right? And maybe someone is asking, are we actually working on the right stuff? So are we flying into the right direction? So let's build the flight level 3 system. So on the flight level 3 system, teams can like operate the flight level 3 system. So the point I want to make is flight level can work completely without any organizational structure. Of course, there is an organizational structure, and we will use this organizational structure to make the best out of it. But when it comes to defining what are your flight level 1, 2, and 3 systems, we are not talking about the organizational structure. We are talking about the operational structure, and that's really important here. So the thing is, you can, of course, map your org chart to the flight levels, but most likely it's not a good idea, right? Because in many organizations, the organizational structure does not really support the operational structure. That's the thing. So what we are doing is, when we are starting with flight levels, the very first thing is we want to figure out what are our flight level 1, 2, and 3 systems. And that's what we are doing when we are building a so-called work systems topology. So this is a work systems topology of a company who is like building drones, yeah, like that are flying around in the air. And these are the flight level 1, 2, and 3 systems here. And you see, it's a little bit different than to the poster what we've seen before. We see teams here. So these are the flight level 1 systems, right? We see flight level 2 systems. In this case, these are like products. They have a 3 propeller drone, 4 propeller, and 5P drone, right? They built a highly innovative drone here. They're using platforms like for the propellers, they're using platforms for the software. And we also have like marketing, legal, sales, and so on. They're also working together. And here we also see that flight level 3 and flight level 2, they are like connected together. So, but that's one of the very first things what we are trying to do is we need to figure out what are our flight level 1, 2, and 3 systems. So this means we're building a work systems topology, right? When we have this work systems topology, the next thing what we are doing is we are trying to figure out how is actually work flying across all these systems. So because behind all these boxes, we apply the 5 activities, right? And the thing is, we somehow need to connect the levels together, because work has to fly from the operational portfolio to this product and maybe to legal, to sales, and so on, right? And that's what we do with so-called flight routes. I will talk about flight routes in a minute. First, I want to show you a system. So let's zoom in here, okay? So this is our operational portfolio, a mixture between flight level 2 and flight level 3, and this is a product board, right? So just to give you like a very high level understanding of how this organization thinks they can manage their work. So this is they call it the company wall, which is the combination between flight level 3 and flight level 2. What you see here is wrong, so don't copy it. It's wrong because your organization works different, right? It works for this organization. I'm sure it's not working for your organization, not at all. So don't copy, okay? But that's really the thing. You need to figure it out for yourself. But just to give you an idea how it could look like in an organization, that's their company wall. So we're talking about outcomes here, strategic outcomes. We have some strategic directions, right? So these are the outcomes that we want to achieve until June 27, the outcomes until the end of the year, and these are like the 3 years outcomes. And the outcomes, they move on a scale here from 0 to 100%. Now the beauty is, here we're talking about outcomes, and these outcomes, they are connected to the right side, and on the right side, we're talking about initiatives. Initiatives in this case can be compared to a project, but it's technically not a project. But this is actually where people are working. Yeah. So here on the left side, nobody's working. This is just like the goals and outcomes that we want to achieve. But we connect these strategic outcomes with the work that's actually going on in the organization. And you see, that's not a very fancy board here, because we don't need the fancy board on the flight level 3. It's more like, okay, these are items that are still on ground. These initiatives are in flight, they are done, and we're measuring them if we achieved what we wanted to achieve, right? So that's the company wall. That's a typical like flight level 3 board, what we see here. This is a product board. So this is a flight level 2 system. So what we see here, again, they applied the 5 activities across multiple teams. So on this board, I guess roughly 200 people are working on this board. Yeah. So what you see here is they have this discover and define. So we want to figure out what we are going to deliver to the market a little bit later. We also have outcomes here on the flight level 2 system. And here, this is like the delivery part where they are like, okay, we're like splitting initiatives into epics, and then we are implementing them, right? So this is 2 systems. And for all the boxes on the work systems topology, we're applying these 5 activities. And now we have all these boards in our organization. But the thing is, we need to connect the boards, right? One thing is to have this board, and the other thing is they need to collaborate the boards. And this is where the flight routes come into play. Flight routes basically connect all the systems in your organization. So this is again an example what I'm showing you here. Do not copy. It works different in your organization. But how is this organization doing it? Well, that's a so-called trigger. A trigger is something like a new feature idea, right? And when there's a new feature idea, what they're doing next is they are like trying to nail the jelly on the wall of this idea, and they are like writing a canvas. This is something like where they somehow try to understand what can we do with this feature? Why do we want to do it, right? What problem is it solving? How difficult is it to do it? What is an expected return on investment, and so on. So this is just like, yeah, as I said, nail the jelly on the wall, right? So we have a canvas here. There is, in this organization, a canvas has no time bound. It's just like a formal description of an idea, which could be delivered to the market within 2 days or 2 years. So we are not talking about timescale here. But in the next step, what they are doing is they are generating outcomes out of the canvases, right? And outcomes, they have a time bound already, because we want to achieve certain outcomes until a certain date here, right? Okay, next. So this is like the part where we try to formalize our idea and derive like strategic outcomes out of it. Now we could imagine that they just start to work on it, right? But that's not what's going on in this organization. What they are doing is they are bringing up the outcomes to the flight level 3 system, to the company wall. And not only this flight level 2 system, like this product, is bringing up their outcomes, all the flight level 2 systems in the organization, they bring up the outcomes to the flight level 3 system. And then they do a so-called strategy planning. And that's what they do. You do it differently, again. Sorry for annoying you, but it's important that you don't copy. What is the strategy planning about? They are like, okay, we don't want to sub-optimize for certain products. So all the ideas, all the great ideas that all the product have, they are in competition now. So they really have a pitching meeting where they pitch the ideas, they pitch the outcomes that they want to achieve, and then they come up with a sequenced order of things, of outcomes that they want to see, that they want to achieve in the market for the next quarter or for the next year, right? When they have this order of outcomes, the teams get together and they do a so-called delivery planning. So one thing is, okay, we know we want to achieve this in the market, and the other thing is, what do we need to do for this, right? So there's a delivery planning where they try to figure out who has to collaborate with whom, and then they produce or they generate initiatives. An initiative in this organization has impact on the market within 3 months. So in this organization, there is no initiative bigger than 3 months. So in 3 months, we need to hit the market. Yeah. All right. What next? So now we have the best ideas up here for the next 3 months. Now, these ideas, these initiatives are not pushed to the flight level 2 systems, but the flight level 2 systems, they pull in these ideas from the flight level 3, right? And now they start to work on it. So there's a pull mechanism established where they pull in work from the flight level 3 to the flight level 2. Now, this flight level 2 has an initiative here. So we're talking about 3 months of work on each sticky note on this board here. And well, that's too big for organizations. So what they are doing is they are splitting these initiatives into epics. Now they are splitting it. So they are splitting these initiatives into epics. Epics is something that can't be handled by teams, right? And that's exactly what's going on. Next, the teams. So I'm coming up with a flight level 1 board now. Now the teams, they pull in the epics from the flight level 2 system, and they generate stories and tasks out of it, and then they work on the stories. And this is somehow how all these flight levels are connected together. So we define our flight level 1, 2, and 3 systems, and then we define the flight routes, how we connect the flight level systems. So in real life, you usually don't have all the boards in place. So what we do is we come up with a visualization like this. So this would be like the flight route you've just seen. So we have a trigger here, a new feature idea, which is triggering work on a flight level 2 system. Then they are like working on a canvas. They are generating outcomes out of the canvas. The outcomes go up to the flight level 3. That's just what we've seen right now, right? Then they generate initiatives out of it. Initiatives go down, generate epics out of it. Epics go down to flight level 1, generate stories out of it. So this is one flight route. And the cool thing about flight routes is that we can do something like this. So we can just like draw the route and forget about all the flight item types that we've seen behind it. And that's something what we call a heartbeat. And the heartbeats are actually quite important to analyze, right? So for instance, this could be a heartbeat. How would we interpret this heartbeat? Well, maybe something like this. There is a group of very smart people on flight level 3 who exactly know what the rest of the organization has to do. So this is a typical top-down pattern, right? Flight level 3 decides what's going on, and then work is going down in the organization. This is another flight route. Looks like the deadline, but that's not what it is. This is more like it seems like in this organization or here in this flight route, the flight route tells, this heartbeat tells us that work can be triggered on flight level 1 on the teams, and they can work on it autonomously, right? Nice. The thing is, it's about them. Oh my. Are you still seeing the things? Okay. I hope that, okay, there's weird flickering going on, but let's see. What did I want to say? Yes. So the thing is, we need to come up with these heartbeats in the organization, and then we need to see what are actually the heartbeats. And we need to somehow, it's about the mixture of the heartbeats. I would not say that this is a bad heartbeat, a bad flight route, right? But if the majority of your flight routes look like this, you probably have a lot of alignment in your organization because flight level 3 tells everyone what to do, but there's totally no autonomy, right? So all innovation and everything is just triggered on flight level 3. If you have something like this, yeah, well, you have maybe a lot of autonomy, but you don't have a lot of alignment, right? So if the majority of your flight routes look like this, that's also not the best, right? This is also like a nice heartbeat. So ideas can be triggered on flight level, can be born on flight level 1. But is there a way in our organization that an idea from a team can become a company priority? I see it so often in these agile organizations. We're doing hacking days and everything and come up with great ideas, and then the hacking days are over and we're going back to normal, right? So is there a way how a team can actually promote the idea to make it a company priority, right? And that's the point of the flight routes or the heartbeats. We need to like be able to support the business that we want to see, right? So it's not about good or bad for the single flight routes. We need to see the mixture of them. And having this conversation is actually quite fruitful in workshops. All right, so that's pretty much it what I wanted to show about flight levels today. So let me quickly summarize. So what are organizations doing when they are doing flight levels? In the end, it's about applying 5 activities on 3 levels, right? If we before we can apply the 5 activities on the 3 levels, we need to figure out what are our flight level 1, 2, and 3 systems. And that's what we built a so-called work systems topology. And together with the flight routes, the work systems topology is the flight level systems architecture. And this tells us how work is actually flying through the organization. And in the end, that's what flight levels is about. 5 activities on 3 levels and the systems architecture to glue all the islands together. Thank you.
That was great. So we've got a few questions here. And it looks like we've got some time to cover them. I'm going to throw a link in the chat again. If you have questions, add them to the board. Vote for what you want to hear answered up and down. It looks like our top question here is sometimes it feels like our measurements end up driving the wrong behavior. Are there any common measurements that should just be avoided?
I don't want to fall into the trap where I say, okay, figure out your measurements on your own and like they shall act as a feedback loop. But yes, individual performance measurements and stuff like this, I don't see a lot of positive ways how you can apply them. But in the end, the message I want to get across is it's not about the measurement. What do you want to achieve, right? Put this one first. And if I know that's what I want to achieve, and then I try to come up with a measurement plus counter measurements, you hopefully don't fall into this trap where you like come up with some metrics that doesn't make any sense unless you want to achieve something that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Well, it sounds like I like what you said there of iterating on it. Find what you want to achieve, come up with some measurements. If it doesn't work, stop doing that and do something different, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, next question here. Are flight levels different from the safe concepts of agile release trains and solution trains?
That's a long discussion. Yes, I think they are fundamentally different because they are. No, where to start? So I think flight levels is as so. Probably you can compare a flight level 2 with an agile release train, right? But the thing is, there is nothing like a work systems topology and like how all these things work together in safe, as far as I know, and I'm totally not a safe expert. That's the other thing. And there is no blueprint, and the idea is that the entire change process behind it. In flight levels, you don't build things for people, you build it with the people. So we haven't talked about this. So there is no blueprint, there is nothing that you can copy, because you come up with it on your own, and it's totally tailored to your context. But the thing is, maybe safe people should answer this question, because I'm not a safe guy. I just see, and that's somehow quite interesting, that more and more safe people are using work systems topology in their work. So we just had a flight levels conference 2 weeks or so ago, where we had a presentation where someone was basically building all the release trains and everything in an organization uh, by using a work systems topology. So I also see it as kind of complementary. So I know a bank in Bangkok who is like using SAFe, and they are also having other frameworks in their organization, and they use flight levels to glue all these agile islands together. So yeah, um, in the end, I would say it is different, but it also can work good together. So it's not like it's not like, I don't know, water and fire. It's like steak and potato. So they can also work quite well together.
Okay. So you mentioned one thing about I just wondered if you could talk a little bit more about how you were saying it's something that's being developed with people instead of, I'm not using the word you use, but being given to them of here's what you do, of more of like they're going to work on it. How can you
Yeah.
discuss that a little bit more, because that sounds very important.
Yeah, that's like what I tried to mention when I've shown the three flight levels, the poster of it, right? So the general mindset behind it is, and that's why I say it is a thinking model, right? So the people who are actually doing the work, they are like building their work system, because they really understand how it works. And the idea is that you bring yeah, enough stakeholders on board so that you can are somehow able to capture reality quite nicely, right? So something like Jira download flight level 2 system here, that's wrong. And I'm really like I try to avoid words like wrong and correct or something like this, but that's totally not the point. So the people who are actually doing the work, they know best how it works, and that's the idea why we build yeah, systems with the people and not for people. And
I,
this
it,
applies for all the flight levels actually.
I enjoyed hearing you show something or see you show something on the screen and then say, "Hey, look, don't do this, right? Here's a really nice setup for this company. Don't you dare do this. This, it won't work for you. You need to come up with your own." Because I think that's something that we overlook a lot of times and try to just mimic the end state people got through instead of going through the process they went through to get there.
I mean, what we do, for instance, so when we're running a flight level 2 design workshop, that's probably the best example. We work with a lot of patterns. So we developed a pattern library. So you have many patterns for certain situations. For instance, if we are in a situation of knowledge bottleneck, so we have a high degree of specialization, we can offer you 2 or 3 patterns how you could build a board which somehow addresses this point, right? um, if you are dealing with other problems like a lot of waiting times or hidden waiting times where you don't see them, we can offer you some patterns how you can uncover your hidden waiting times and stuff. So what we are trying to do is we try to offer patterns, and you combine the patterns to find actually your way of doing it. So it's not that we say, okay, you need to do everything from scratch, but the idea is not to copy something. So really in the pattern library, you have a description. Oh, this works in this situation. It doesn't work in another situation. And now you're combining this pattern, add your own magic and fairy dust, and then everything is great in the end. That's the idea.
So that would probably mean that if one organization is using flight levels and another one is, they're probably going to look very, very different from each other.
Exactly. And
Okay.
also within the organization. So for instance, if product A builds a flight level 2 system, chances are quite high that product B has a different flight level 2 system. Maybe they have different dependencies. Maybe, I don't know, like legal things are way more important in product B than in product A. And this is maybe because, I don't know why, but that's the reason why the design of the system shall look different actually, because you're optimizing for a different thing. Yeah.
Well, I think that covers the questions that people got in the Q&A. Let me see if there's anything else in the chat that just showed up there. Can you tell us, we've got a few more minutes here. Can you tell, for somebody that's like, hey, this looks really good, I want to dig into this more. I know I'm going to send out the links you gave me and key codes and stuff. So everybody that's on the call will get that a little bit later. But where do we go to learn more? We've got the book. I put the link in for that. We got Flight Levels IO. What are next
Yeah,
steps?
I think the a good way to enter the world of flight levels is probably to go to Flight Levels IO. If you go there in 2 or 3 weeks, we even have a new webpage, but go there today. No, and on Flight Levels IO, there is a self-paced workshop, a self-paced training course, which is called the FLIN, the Flight Levels Introduction course. And yeah, some of the stuff that I've covered here is also part of the FLIN, but it gives you a lot of exercises in between where you can actually figure out if flight levels is something that could help your organization. So FLIN is really like a decision-making course where you can figure out, okay, is flight level something for me or not? But when you're doing the FLIN, don't rush through the videos. Also go through the exercises, do it in a group, and I think then you can really see if flight levels is something for your context. And in the FLIN, there are also pointers like where you can go deeper if you like.
Cool. And we just had one more question here from David saying, how might you map a constrained shared service like an infrastructure team or sub-organization?
I guess we have it here somewhere. Um, it depends is always the correct answer, right? We probably have something like this, a software platform. This is something which is used by different, or are you more like marketing, sales? So the thing is, we need to understand we need to understand the pattern behind it. So if in this case, marketing is somehow connected to the operational portfolio, because each and every product, they need marketing, and the marketing is quite small, so they don't have dedicated resources for the products, right? So they coordinate everything across or through the operational portfolio. If you have a bigger marketing like teams, you probably have a different way of how you are doing it. But the thing is, that's exactly what we are trying to figure out when we are building the work systems topology. And the beauty of this approach is, when you're building the work systems topology, we are always doing simulations. And with these simulations, you can actually see how much coordination is needed if marketing is, for instance, like coordinating through this operational portfolio, or if we decentralize it, right? So you can, it is actually an organizational design simulator, kind of. Yeah, the short answer is, I don't know how to map it. I need to understand your case, but with the tools offered in the work systems topology, we will find multiple ways and we will choose the one that's the best for your situation. So we always work with different scenarios. We come up with different possible solutions, and then we choose the best solution in the end.
And Andy had a question I was about to ask too, is what does a simulation look like? Is that based on like looking at previous tickets, or how does that work?
It's more like, yeah, previous tickets is a good thing. Like, okay, typical work that has to be done in the organization. How much coordination does it need, for instance? That's one thing. Coordination, the easiest question is, how many people, or whom do we have to invite to a stand-up meeting, for instance, right? And if the answer is, okay, 300 people need to show up at this stand-up meeting, It's probably not the best how your work systems topology looks like right now, right? And then the other thing is the simulation are the flight routes, where you really like route work through the organization. So you always have these two things: how is work flying through the organization? You can simulate this through the flight routes, and you can simulate coordination with typical meetings, like I don't know, standard meeting, retrospective, or something like this.
Okay, well, Klaus, thank you so much. Let everybody know I did get this recorded. I will get a link out to you in case you want to review it or want to share it with anyone. I've got some links from Klaus as well that cover some of the things that were discussed here. I saw a hand come up. Matthew, did you have something or were you waving?
I was trying to applaud,
Oh,
but
okay.
I clearly don't know how to operate the machine. So
Okay, there we go.
Matt, you're eating now because I was eating at your presentation last time.
Okay, well, thank you everybody for coming. And Klaus, thank you so much for coming again. And Lisa, thank you for suggesting we get him. So I really appreciate everybody showing up. And Klaus, especially thank you for this. This was great. Really enjoyed it.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Have a great day, everybody.